Perfect. Thanks everyone for listening in. It's only a quick introduction or an update for people who follow our story. My name's Charles Funk. I'm the CEO of Heliostar. People might know me more as a VPX for Vizsla Silver. I was fortunate enough to lead that discovery and now on the board of Vizsla as that's moving to a much more mature, ultimately going to become a major silver mine in Mexico. And the reason we moved with Heliostar to pick up Unga is we saw exactly the same potential. We saw a massive district that had hardly been explored, that has really bonanza gold grades. And I think if you're going to take the punt in this market to investing in exploration stocks and particularly gold stocks, you've got to see that the prize is big enough. You've got to go after high-grade, multi-million ounce potential districts, and that's what we offer with the Unga project. You can find a full copy of this presentation, including the forward-looking statements, on our website. But today, I just wanted to update you on what our plans are for this year. And at this slide, just discuss, there's things that all companies would like to achieve at the moment, and there's the reality of the current capital environment and what you can then achieve. And so last year we had a really successful program at Unga. We showed that it was a lot bigger than the resource. The resource is just short of 400,000 ounces at nearly 14 grams per tonne gold. So extremely high grade, and we think we can expand that. But what we wanted to show people was that this is part of a much bigger district. And we drilled holes like 3 metres at 88 grams gold, 4.5 metres at nearly 20 grams gold. We made a new discovery at Aquila with some local high grade and broad intercepts as well. And so we know that if we keep drilling, we've got so many open gold intercepts. If we keep drilling, if we keep expanding that, we think for around $20 million, we can deliver a high-grade million-ounce resource. And that's what we would love to just put the foot down and do. But in this environment, you have to tread it and break it into slightly smaller pieces to get to that end goal so that you achieve the success on the project, but you still have a good business proposition for your shareholders. And so today what we're looking at is a slightly more modest program, but it has a really key role in that it opens up Unga for much more year-round exploration. We're going to be drilling at Centennial. The plan is to drill at Centennial in July, a 2,000 metre program that we can explore year-round. And we're doing a scoping study on rehabilitating the old mine, and that'll allow for much broader opportunities to go underground drilling and expand that season, potentially year-round at Apollo as well. So what we're looking at doing is moving the project forward, hitting where we know we're going to have good gold intercepts, which I talked to you about, and getting us closer to that goal, which is the initial million-ounce resource on the property. For those not familiar, we're out in the we're out in the peninsula of Alaska. So we're a long way south than what people typically expect. The great thing about that is it means field season's really long. It's already a 9-month field season. And what's surprising for people is how good the infrastructure is. We can land a 737 on the airstrip at Sandpoint. There's a town there that we operate out of. It actually makes the logistics a lot simpler than people expect when you talk about Alaskan exploration. And so this is a map showing the veins, showing some of those results in red that we hit last year. And so we're going to talk about Centennial here in the top right on Popov Island. We thought the way to approach this district is if we've got all these targets, we just focus on what we thought are the highest probability targets. We expanded the drilling footprint around the resource last year. We found the extensions of the old mine at Apollo, which I'll talk about, and we made the discovery at Aquila. And the next target to drill was Centennial. And so, first of all, when I tell you it's big on a global scale. The size of the prize here is massive. All of these four are at exactly the same scale. And realistically, the only difference between them is the ones on the right and Panuco, where I led that discovery, have had tens to hundreds of millions of dollars of funding and ultimately mining at Cerro and Comstock. Unga's had 54 holes drilled outside of the resource on the whole property in 100 years. So it's really underexplored. It's important to have a lot of veins because only a small amount of those veins carry the gold. So if you don't have a lot of veins, you're never going to form a big district. So always look at these maps and always look at the scale of the target when people are presenting epithermal gold projects to you. And so if I zoom into Centennial, you can see it in the inset exactly where it is. You can see the airstrip at the bottom left, the harbour and the town of Sandpoint. Sam, our VPX, and I were up there last week getting ready for what we'd like to do. And Centennial's name Centennial was found in the late 80s, 100 years after the founding of Sandpoint. It was found by a geologist called Bill Ellis, who's just recently passed away, and we're going to follow up his legacy. He found just over 200,000 ounces in a flat-lying blanket of gold mineralisation on surface. But what we've recognised, if you look more closely at the next slide here, particularly down the bottom when you look at those cliffs, is all of those drill holes are very shallow and they're almost subvertical. They're not angled or shallowly angled drill holes with a few exceptions. And what we found is that there's these high-grade veins that feed that flat-lying body of gold. And we know they're higher grade from a couple of drill holes and the geological model that we follow. So our program this year is to come in with angled holes, and we think we can find the high-grade feeder zones that feed that gold resource. The great thing is we know we're going to hit gold. The question is, can we hit the bonanza grade gold that we know exists on these veins elsewhere in the property? And that would be a huge step change for Centennial. We're also doing the scoping study I mentioned on the engineering at Apollo. So here's a map showing those results we drilled last year. There's a couple of features, some of those really bonanza grades at the Shaft 2 and Sitka area that we talked about. And then you can see that bottom call-out box on the bottom left. I might have a pointer just down here in this area here. The old mine was lost to the west in a fault, and Sam had this idea that it was offset to the south. And the last 4 holes we drilled last year, we went looking for that offset, and we were 0 from 3 on those holes. And we sort of scratched our head and went, we're pretty confident that it should be here. And maybe we've got the dip wrong. Instead of dipping to the south, the vein dips the other way. So the last hole we drilled last year, that was the right thesis. The vein dipped in the opposite direction to what all the old, what everyone thought in the last 50 years, because this mine shut down in the 20s and the records aren't that great. So we drilled 1.5 meters at 5 grams, not, bonanza to jump up and down and say we've changed the world, but we've found the extension of the old mine. And so our strategy now, if you look at Shaft 1, Shaft 2 and Sitka, on this old long section that was drawn, you can see Shaft 1, Shaft 2 and Sitka. Here was about 100 to 150,000 ounces at about 10 to 15 grams mined at the turn of last century. And as they got deeper, this style of vein changed from gold rich to gold with base metals, and they didn't have the technology to recover that. Today that's routine and straightforward. But what they did do was they sunk these shafts deeper and drove these tunnels looking for more mineralisation. And so what we're proposing to do is, first of all, step 1 is to rehabilitate this level of the mine. If I jump back a step, that's going to get us from here all the way across to here, and also a parallel vein called Rising Sun that looks really interesting. And that's going to mean that we can put an underground drill rig in there and drill short holes with high probabilities of success, knowing exactly where this vein is. The next level that we can do is then dewater and access the deeper levels. And we know there's a lot of gold here. We know there's a lot of potential from the drilling that we did last year. We've just got to step underneath, step along strike and see what the full endowment of Apollo is. So we've got a team and board that knows how to explore these systems. We have been fortunate. We've raised about 17 million Canadian in the last 18 months to move the project forward in a way that it's never seen before. We recently had Clark Gillum, a really proud Alaskan, really supportive of Alaskan projects, join our board. So we know how to do this. We know what we're doing at the next step. We think Unga's got a huge amount of potential, which we're just scratching the surface on. We've got a really tight share structure with the 43 million shares out only, of which the board owns more than 20% of. We've got good analyst coverage from Michael Gray and Mike Neihauser if you want to go and look at some independent views of the potential of the property. But what we're doing this year is keeping the momentum. It's not a market where you want to go out and spend $10 million. We'd love to do that from the project perspective, but that wouldn't be the smartest use of capital at the moment. We just want to keep our momentum going, deliver gold results at Centennial, and make Unga more of a year-round drill program to explore. We've got a booth, so if you'd like to come and see us and learn more, please drop by or look on the website. Thank you.